Hello, and welcome to today's Tiger webinar. I'm John Rodabaugh, Executive Director of Alumni Relations, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar. We are happy to have you join us today and hope that you and your entire Tiger family are well and continue to weather this new environment. We want you to know that the Office of Alumni Relations is available to help all RIT alumni with a variety of needs, including new virtual content, learning opportunities, and networking and career assistance. We especially encourage everyone to connect with the RIT Alumni Association social media channels, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you will find up-to-date communications and opportunities to connect with the university and to the alumni in your region and your industry. Those links can be found in the chat box. The chat box can be opened by clicking on the chat tab at the right of your webinar window. Many in our RIT family have asked, how can you help our students and the university as we respond to this pandemic? And we are very grateful for those offers. Alumni have come out of the woodwork asking how they can help. There are two ways you can help. First, I want to point out, obviously very important for our new graduates and our current students who are seeking positions for full-time careers and co-ops. Many of these positions have been delayed or canceled entirely. So if your company is hiring or would consider adding a co-op post, please contact our career services office. And we'll post some of that information in the chat. In addition, there's now an unprecedented need for financial aid scholarships for current and incoming students. And if you are able to, and in a position to, please consider making a gift at the link in the chat box. All of that support goes directly to our students, many of whom are facing an unprecedented need at this point. We want to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the presentation tools. If you are joining from a remote location and are currently signed into your company's VPN, we encourage you to close that channel during the webinar to increase the quality of the transmission. The webinar platform is secure without VPN. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions can be entered in the chat box at any time throughout the discussion. We will make every effort to address all of your comments and questions throughout the webinar. You are joining this event using broadcast audio. If you wish to dial in by phone, dial-in information is provided in the chat box. Live captioning is also being provided, and you can find the link to access that in the chat box as well. The webinar will be recorded and made available, complete with captions, in approximately 1 week following today's event. All participants will receive an email with the link to the recording. If you have any technical questions, feel free to type those in the chat box as well, and we'll do our best to get to you and get you appropriate answers. Now on to our webinar. We're so pleased to welcome RIT alumnus Rob Groh, class of '88. Rob is RIT's head baseball coach and all-time leader in coaching wins, as well as a 2006 Athletics Hall of Fame inductee. Rob collected his 500th win in 2019. In 2017, he enjoyed the finest season in program history, winning the Liberty League championship for the first time and making their first NCAA Division III baseball championship appearance. He played 3 years of baseball for RIT as an outfielder and is among the career leaders in runs, walks, and on-base percentage. Joining Rob today are Greg Keagle, who is currently RIT's assistant baseball coach and spent 11 seasons in professional baseball. He was a 6th-round pick of the San Diego Padres in 1993, and in 1996 he made his major league debut with the Detroit Tigers. He went on to pitch 3 seasons in the majors, appearing in 46 games and making 23 starts. As RIT's assistant coach, Greg has helped the RIT pitching staff become one of the best in all of Division III. Last but certainly not least, joining us is Doug Linton. Doug is currently the Colorado Rockies Pitching Coordinator. He played all or part of 7 seasons in Major League Baseball between 1992 and 2003 for the Blue Jays, the Angels, the Mets, the Royals, and the Orioles. Doug made his Blue Jays debut on August 3rd, 1992 at Fenway Park. And after his playing career, Doug moved on to coaching and has been with the Colorado Rockies organization for 15 years. We'll also add that his wife, Lisa, is an alum. So happy to have Doug here as well. So gentlemen, it's our pleasure to welcome you today. I'll be monitoring the chat for questions that come in, but I'm going to throw this out to Rob first and just, Rob, with everything that's going on with the pandemic, what's happening with RIT's baseball team?
Yeah, thanks, John. This year, obviously a hugely different year. We were in Florida, got the news that the season would be over. We actually played a game the day that we found out. So treated that kind of like our senior day, which was good that we got to do some of that. But super emotional day, a lot of tears, coaches, players, parents, great families, great following. But it was nice to be able to acknowledge the boys a little bit. And then when we didn't come back to class, it was online learning and things like that. We had to figure out a way to do senior day and really honor our seniors. So we put together a really great Zoom program and did most of what we would do live as a banquet. And I think pulled it off pretty well. One of our parents, Kim Moran, did a great tribute video to the boys. Pictures from when they were in Little League and just little kids running around. Always the best thing to see. But it was nice to be able to recognize our seniors. And so, as you can imagine, RIT and athletes especially, real resilient kids. We got to the next process and what we needed to do to get better and how we could take advantage of this time and better ourselves. So, guys we meet with them on Zoom. At one point, we're meeting 4 days a week on Zoom, getting to know the team even better, deeper. Our 2020 class coming in, we've already had 3 Zoom meetings with them. So have a great interaction with them. But one of the things we did early on is we put together as a coaching staff, kind of a 3-page report to Lou Spiatti, our athletic director, saying, hey, here's how we want to train our guys remotely. Just in case we don't come back in the fall and we have the opportunity to do some things, here's how we're going to do it. NCAA gave us a little latitude and we can stay in touch with the boys right now. So we're taking advantage of that. And we got a gift, which was really nice from the Sheridan family. And we were able to send out blast sensors to all of our hitters. So they all have blast sensors. We can get video from them with analytic data, and we can work with our guys. We've got one freshman that's already sent 2 or 3 videos to our hitting coach, Brett Kajanik. He's getting better. Other veteran guys are sending it in. So we're using this time wisely. We're trying to make sure we're getting better, and we've put a good spin on it. I think that we're still connected for sure. Our guys are healthy and happy. We make sure of that, but we're also able to work on skill, and that's hugely important. Baseball is a skill sport, and being able to have the technology to do it, and then the coaching staff to be able to do that is something that not a lot of programs in the country are doing, I would guess, whether you're Division 1, 2, or 3. I think we're in the forefront of being able to stay connected with our guys and help our guys get better in this time.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, and I know there's probably a number of former players that are attending the webinar today, and I know they appreciate the update as well. So I know we wanted to talk a lot today about what it's like making it to the show, what it's like pitching and working in Major League Baseball. But before we get to that, I'm going to throw this question out there, and then and Doug, why don't we start with you? Back in the day, before everything started, and you got on that career path towards Major League Baseball, what was the recruiting process like for college, and what for you guys, and what was your college experience like, including like summer baseball and all of that?
Well, leaving high school, obviously my dream was to go to UCLA. I grew up in Southern California and wanted to play ball, continue on at UCLA, but basically the head coach at that time, Gary Adams, told me I could walk on, no scholarship, and see what's going to happen from there. UC Irvine, where I went to, the head coach there, Mike Girakis, told me, you'll pitch against UCLA if you come here your freshman year. So, and plus there was some scholarship money there. So I wound up going to UC Irvine. And academic college, I went as a pre-med major, didn't stay as a pre-med major. Obviously, at the time, there was no college restrictions for how many hours you could be on the field. So it was really tough in the classroom. Switched to economics. And then I happened to get drafted my junior year out of UC Irvine. At that time, there was 50 rounds. I got drafted in the 43rd round. So got a phone call on the 3rd day. And Toronto Blue Jays called me and said, you've been selected in the 43rd round. And my response was I the last guy taken? And he said, no, but close. And, back in those days, the draft wasn't quite like what it is today with television, everything like that. It's kind of funny. It was another maybe 15 minutes later, the Yankees called, and they wanted to know if I had been drafted, and they wanted to pick me up as a free agent. And I said, well, Toronto already drafted me. So in the middle of all that, my 3 years at UC Irvine, I played 3 college seasons, but I also went to the summer leagues. I played 2 years in the Jayhawk League, which is in Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa. And I played 1 year in the Alaskan League. The year I played in the Alaska League, basically that was the year I got drafted. The Blue Jays offered me $1,000. I told them they had to come up with my scholarship. Otherwise, you can check me out in the Alaska League. Went up there, and I wound up getting co-MVP with Mike Harkey, who was the next year's #1 draft pick by the Chicago Cubs. So they bumped up the money, and I wound up signing late with the Blue Jays.
Nice. And Greg, what was your experience like from the recruiting process through college and up to the draft?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Doug, I certainly wasn't top on anybody's draft list. In fact, that's probably my best story, is the fact that I was really relatively unknown. I was a shortstop in high school. I'd like to believe I could hit, but I guess other people beg to differ. I do want to see what my college stats were. I do have a home run, and I was at MCC. So, but anyway, I guess, some coaches liked the way that I threw it across the field and decided that they should, that I should be a pitcher. I went to MCC, pitched at MCC for a couple of years, and ended up getting a scholarship to go to Florida International. When I went down to Florida International, I was so unknown that I guess that was, I did well when I got there. You go from Rochester, New York, which certainly isn't baseball mecca. I mean, it's a great, it's great baseball in the Northeast, and Section 5 has always been great high school baseball. And, there's 3 or 4 really strong, university programs here locally, right, that are within a half hour of each other. So the baseball level of talent certainly isn't an issue, but it's just not necessarily, it's not a great place to scout. You don't see a lot of scouts at games. So when you go from Rochester to Miami, and then you have a few scouts see you throw well, it doesn't take long for phones to start ringing. And I started getting these like draft cards, and some people started projecting potential top 10 rounds, and which was still didn't seem real. I remember the day I got drafted, I was watching, we didn't have technology, so we were watching TBS. For all you local upstate New Yorkers that didn't have a lot of baseball, TBS was the only baseball you could watch, because of course they showed the Braves, and it was back in the Dave Kingman days when they didn't have much else, and they were playing the Padres. And I don't know why I thought, it wouldn't be weird if I got drafted by the Padres. I think I was hoping I'd get a call the first hour of the draft, and a couple hours had gone by. I decided to jump in the shower, and the phone rang actually while I was in the shower. So that's kind of my draft story, is to kind of go from a relative unknown, then, top 10 rounds, and then, true to fashion, I guess, I'm not ready for the phone call when it came.
And Rob, you've been kind of on both sides of it, being, I'm sure, recruited locally here to come to RIT, but also prepping some of RIT's players for the draft, or for playing pro.
Yeah, it was so much different back in the day. It's so funny because, I had a pretty good college career, but didn't have any draft status or anything like that. I did have one chance with the Orioles because they didn't have all their outfielders signed. This kid from Fresno State didn't sign, and the guy that I played summer ball with before was now the pitching coach, and he said, "Hey, you're going to come in and work out. Just don't fall on your face and suck, and you'll be playing with the Orioles." So they signed that kid, and I never got a chance, right? But the funny thing was, IDs were different and everything back in the day. I actually made my ID to be younger, right? Everybody wants to be old enough to get to a bar. I made my ID younger. I was telling scouts how young I was and everything like that. I'd do anything. So anyways, that was as close as I got. But we have had guys get drafted now, right? So that's something that's happened before. We've had guys, my college roommate, Sean McKenzie, played minor league baseball. Mickey Streets played minor league baseball. Jeff Hall famously made it pretty far. Caught Roger Clemens in the minor leagues and things like that. So pretty cool stuff. We had Will Gorman signed as a position player in Division III. Is pretty hard to do, but he signed with the Diamondbacks. 30 some odd rounds. And this year, Stevie Branch, our number one pitcher, was projected actually to be a top 10 round draft pick. Stevie's worked so hard. Coaching staff's done a great job with him. But he had a bunch of scouts down in Florida watch him. He hit 95. It's a big number. And then he pitched at 92 the entire 6 innings. A couple organizations really like him, project him to be able to make it all the way to the show, just like these two. So it's like a 5-round draft now. So we don't know if he's going to get drafted, and then they're only going to sign so many free agents. So shame if Stevie doesn't get a chance. This kid has come a long way, worked for it. You're not going to find a better kid, more deserving person, and it'd be great to see him get a chance. How far he makes it, I don't know, but he definitely is a pro baseball player. And, for some of the people out there that haven't been around the program in a while, you got a guy throwing 95, and our number 2 was in the 90s as well the same day. So velocity's ticking up even in Division III.
Nice, great. Well, speaking of the journey, let's kind of go around the horn here, and Doug, we'll start with you. What was the minor league experience like as you were coming up before you made it into the bigs? And what was that journey like certainly back in the 90s? And what do you think about today with all this news about minor league baseball and the relationship with Major League Baseball?
Back in the day, my first year was 87, and because I signed late, I didn't play any kind of rookie ball or short season. I went right to the South Atlantic League, which happened to be my first year was in Myrtle Beach. So you couldn't have been in a better place. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, first year of pro ball. It was pretty good. The only bad thing about it is we didn't have a stadium, didn't have a field. We had to play at the old Coastal Carolina Stadium, and basically it was a chain link. No locker room. Our locker room was underneath the football stands, and knowing the summers in South Carolina, it was hot. When it rained, you'd get about an inch or 2 on the floor of the locker room. When we went on a road trip, we had to make sure all of our equipment was off the floor. Otherwise, you'd come back and be wet. But that was my first introduction to pro ball. But I had a great year. I was 14-2 with a 1.5 ERA, and it bumped me up to AA that same year. And the next stop for me was Knoxville. Again, an old rickety stadium, nothing nice. And that's what pretty much everything was at that time. Knoxville, and I wound up blowing out my shoulder that year. Had rotator and labrum surgery. Wound up coming back, went through Knoxville again, and then went to Syracuse, New York. And a lot of people up in this area, if they've been to the old MacArthur Stadium in Syracuse, not that great either. Real rickety old stadium, nothing good. The new stadiums now, obviously, I've seen them in the minor leagues being a coordinator, much nicer. I played in the old Rochester Stadium, and I've played in the new one. And at the time, my last year, when I was with the Orioles in 99, got sent down to AAA, so the stadium here was fairly new in 99. But I also played in the old Silver Stadium. Again, minor league ball, it's a grind. Especially, I played 18 years up and down, big leagues and AAA, and it is a grind. You don't have lavish spreads in the clubhouse. Where up in the big leagues, we have with the Rockies and pretty much everybody else, they have their own chef now. They're cooking your food, and pretty much what you want, they'll go and get. Minor leagues, it's what you have there. If you don't like it, you're eating, on the road somewhere. And I know Greg and I talked about that. I think last time I was playing minor league, meal money might have been $35 or $40 in AAA. In the big leagues, it's over $100 a day. So you definitely could eat pretty well when you're up in the big leagues. Minor leagues, when you're on the road, it was fast food.
So hey, before you move on, Rochester obviously was the best minor league stop you had, right?
I gotta say yes, because I met my wife. So,
there you go.
Right.
who a little segue into RIT, but
right.
And you know what? I'll I'll turn around. I know, John, you talked about where RIT has come with Rob earlier, and I first met Rob in '99, the 2000 off season, and the talent then to compare to the talent he has now, because I go there all the time and see it's tenfold. I think he's brought some real good talent into RIT, and just the difference between Division III and Division I, it's shrinking. It's definitely shrinking, especially with the talent he is getting in at RIT.
Well, that's actually a good segue, Doug. 'Cause I wanted to touch on the part of, 'cause I talked a lot about how my recruiting process was different because of the technology that may or may not have existed. And a lot of it, when I refer to technology, I really mean communication, I guess. Other than a phone call and a voicemail, there wasn't a lot of communication you could have, and it certainly wasn't going to, like I said, you weren't going to get a lot of scouts to come out to, watch you play university, GCC, Genesee Community College. No disrespect to either program. It's just there's so many schools to go watch, right? But yet, if you have a kid at GCC or MCC who can throw 90 or throws 85, 88, or swings the bat well, can run, play defense, now video can follow them. They can start reaching out to other coaches. The gap between Division I and Division III, part of it is just growth of athletes, nutrition, weight training, the access to better facilities and better training when you're a young player. I mean, we threw balls against brick fences, right, or brick walls to have the ball come back to you. Now there's pitchbacks and all kinds of things that you can use, but the game is still the same. The best players, what I'll always say, baseball is the greatest sport. The best athletes aren't the best players. The best players are the best players. If they are great athletes, they can become superstars. But there's a reason for the minor leagues. Whether you're a first round draft pick or a 43rd, second round, Doug?
43rd. 43rd.
So whether you're a first or 43rd round, your chances to make it to the big leagues are, albeit slightly different, they still exist. Once you have a ball in your hand or a uniform on in the minor leagues, you have an opportunity to climb through and become a major league player. And that's why the game will supersede or outlast all technology. As great as it is that we bring all this stuff in, the game itself will continue to prosper, and in my opinion, and continue to be great. And for me, to kind of bring it back to the minor league side, because we had talked about it. I mean, certainly I was drafted, went to Spokane, Washington. From Spokane, Washington, went to Wichita, Kansas. From Wichita, that was AA, or excuse me, from Spokane, I went to Rancho Cucamonga, which was part of the Rancho Cucamonga, California, which was part of the California League. It was the A-ball. And AA was Rancho, AA again with Memphis. And then I went to Las Vegas for AAA. And I spent about a half a year, like every minor league stop that I took, I spent like half a year, and then either transitioned up or I just went to a different team. And not one of the facilities compares with Rochester's. Rochester's beautiful. The stadium and the work that Dan does over there, Dan Mason does over there. I mean, it's awesome. The experience itself is a fun night out, right? You don't even the baseball game in and of itself doesn't have to carry it anymore. But to be honest, and I'm assuming it's still the same. Isn't that why there's got to be disparity? You want kids to want to get out of the minors, and I want you want guys to go to the big leagues, because you can, with Twitter and with all the social media, you could still be famous and playing for Toledo Mud Hens or Rochester Red Wings. If you do something great, you got to have a difference in perks and lifestyle and all of that, because you want it to be a pinnacle. That's the ultimate prize, right? Is to have a piece of the brass ring.
Definitely, and you know what? Just to keep on going, that the joy right now in my job is telling the guy he's going up to the next level or going to the big leagues. And that's it. I mean, big difference. Again, what I said, with the locker rooms, the meal money, plane flights. You get done with a series, you're hopping on a charter plane and going to the next city or going home. It's not like in AAA, it's 5 o'clock wake up call and going to the airport. AA down, it's bus rides. Big difference.
And with that 5 o'clock wake up call, let's not forget that you got done working at 11 o'clock the night before. You had dinner at 11:30. So that's like someone going to bed, right? Someone going to bed at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock when they get home, and then getting up again, at midnight to go, get on a flight.
Yeah,
we work those B shifts.
The minor league schedule makers aren't real nice. There's not too many day games right before you got to go on a travel day. So just like you said, if you might be playing till 11 o'clock at night, get back to your apartment at 2, and you're waking up probably at 4 or 4:30 to catch a 5:30 flight or 6 o'clock flight.
After stuffing pizza in your face or fried whatever's left from the concession stand.
Yeah, and that's why, this disparity in what you get paid in the minor leagues and what you get paid in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Rob, we got a side question here from an alum who says, when did RIT first field a baseball team? I graduated in 1967 from the old downtown campus. Can't say I remember a baseball team. Do you remember historically when we started?
Yeah, I should know the exact year, 1950, and it's when we did it. So it was definitely down at the downtown campus. We had a great 1968 team reunion here a couple years ago. Super talented guys. I mean, guys that still hold records here at RIT. How good those guys were. So it's been in existence for quite a long time. In the 50s. But 1967, 68. There were some good teams and some alums that I'm still in touch with. Some really great guys. Yeah. And hey, on the technology aspect, we have a ton of technology in our training now. Our auxiliary gym is amazing. 375-foot cages, hack attacks that throw the ball 90 miles an hour or better, breaking balls, the whole thing. But we also have hit tracks, Rapsodo, blast, as I mentioned earlier. But the Rapsodo data is also important for colleges to be able to give to big league people, scouts and coordinators and stuff like that. Hey, here's Stevie Branch, and here's what he spins his fastball at. Really, that's better than a major league average, right? So we got a kid in college that's spin rate on his fastball is better than major league average. That gets attention from scouts too. So having some of the technology here at RIT is hugely important. And that technology didn't exist in 1967.
No.
And I know everybody knows this because everybody's a baseball fan, but a fastball spin rate is life on a fastball. So when a ball, a lot of hitters will tell you, man, it looks like he's throwing harder than X or whatever it is. The radar gun is great; it gets your attention, but most good scouts they'll look the way guys get swings on a fastball, if what it looks like with timing, and with spin rate that usually is indicative of someone who's sneaky fast or who is beating you through the zone because the ball is getting there quicker than velocity should say it is.
Yeah, and as a pitching coordinator too on the Rapsodo, obviously back in the old days they didn't have that. It came down to could you get the guy out. Now with the spin rates, major league average is 2275 RPMs. If you got a guy can't get it up to the average major league, then you figure out, well, we got to make sure he can sink it. Now, if he can get it over that, then now a guy has the ability to pitch up in the zone and miss bats a lot more. So it only enhances what we can do as a player development to give the kid that's trying to get to the big leagues the best chance to succeed.
Yeah, it sounds like technology is playing a much larger part in the game these days than it ever has, probably at all levels.
Yeah,
Yes.
at all levels. And that was one of the nice things when we were talking about all this technology. I would call Doug and say, hey, using Rapsodo, what's it like? Doug and I are the same age, which is nice. I'm like, if you can do it, hopefully I'll be able to do it. Now we have a bunch of coaches that are 20-something years old. That really helps, right? Those guys really know how to use technology. But it was great to be able to talk to Doug about, how do you use this piece of technology? How is it valuable to you? And I think one of the things, Doug, you said was nice was, your eyes can tell you something, right? And then you go to the data and go, see, you're around the ball. You're not throwing the ball the right way. You got to make some changes, and here's the changes you got to make. So the technology is really good to be able to identify some things, but coaches still need to have corrective measures, and coaches still need to coach.
And I'll lead into that because we have the same philosophy in Colorado with the Rockies. The coaching, we want our coaches, be the personality. Don't coach the same way. That's why we got 6 different levels. They have their own identity. Don't coach for the Rapsodo, but the Rapsodo confirms everything that you're seeing. And we got guys that have been around for a while. I mean, we got Dave Burba, who has got 120 some odd wins up in the big leagues with a bunch of teams. And it just helps them see the data and make sure that they're coaching in the right way. It just clarifies everything.
So I got a question here on the side before we move on, and I want to spend some time talking about what it's like to be in the show. But before we get there, we had a question on the side. I think this is one that a lot of people have heard kind of rumors about and what it's like. But can you make a decent living in the minors, or do you have to have a second job? And did either one of you have to do that?
I'll start off, Greg. When I first got signed, yes, I did have a second job during the off season. I actually worked at a furniture company, which was out in California. It was called Store, but IKEA bought it out. So I took furniture off of trucks coming in and stuff like that. It wasn't fun, but that's what I did for about 2 or 3 years early in my career. Once you get to the big leagues, I got to the big leagues in '92. You start to make some decent money. Then that's when I started playing winter ball. After my 92, I think, well, maybe 91. Yeah, 91 season in AAA, Toronto basically said you got to develop a changeup. You're going to go to Venezuela. We don't care what your results are, what your ERA is, or like that. We want you to learn how to throw a changeup better, and that's what I did.
Greg, how about you? When you were bouncing around, I know you were. You said sometimes you were with 2 different teams in a season on your way up. And yeah. Did you have to work a second job, or were you all right?
Not during the season. Every off season you had to do something. We didn't make enough to save, for the off season until, like Doug said, until 96. I was drafted in 93. 96 was my first year in the big leagues. And once that happened, then that became the job, right? Like I remember feeling that way, pretty excited about it, quite frankly, was that, my job was to be in shape. My job was to work out and to do what it was going to take to continue to master my craft. And I think up until that point, you're still fighting, right? You're still climbing, you're still grinding, you're doing whatever it takes to make it. Now, I think you see, some facilities and some of these youth programs that offer almost opportunities for these guys to get done with their season, come back, give back, if you will, a little bit of their own knowledge, and then still stay in shape and do some things. So I think that has helped. That you'll see some minor leaguers do some things like that. Stay close with maybe some of their summer program. But I think that if you're, it's like anything, if you're going to be serious, if this is really your passion, you have to eat ramen noodles and sleep where you can and live out of a car. And, I had roommates, I remember Arizona fall ball. I rented a room from complete strangers and bought an air mattress and a 5x8 rug and threw it on the floor and literally slept on an air mattress and a 5x8 rug for like 2 months. And before, that was before I got drafted, the winter before I got drafted or got signed in the Rule 5 draft the Rule 5 draft from, I'm not going to get into the complexities of the Rule 5, but it was really kind of like an opportunity for me to pitch in the big leagues really for a whole year, which was great. But that That was 96. So, 95 was, I went to, and like I said, I had no money by that point. And I made 38,000 of a signing bonus, which, let's face it, for a 20-something-year-old, I think I was 21, 22 at the time. That was a lot of money. I bought a truck and had a few dollars in my pocket. I still lived at home. So relatively speaking, it was a lot of money. But certainly, minor leagues is no place to make a living. People, we call them lifers or organizational guys. We've talked about, their goal is still to play in the big leagues. They just know that, they're going to need an injury. They're going to need something, and they need to be the right man at the right spot, right? These organizational guys have seen the game long enough to know that someone gets hurt, they need a player, and if you get hot in October and you have a great, playoff run, that could set you up for life, right? You could have a big contract waiting for you. You could be 7 years in the minors, have one great playoff run in the big leagues, and you're a household name now, and you'd have an opportunity for, like I said, a big contract thereafter. I don't, just because it's a fun story. I don't know if anybody remembers Willie Blair, but during my time in the minors, Willie Blair was pitching with the Detroit Tigers. He was a decent pitcher, kind of a journeyman type of a starter, and he was average for us in the beginning at maybe 500 pitcher. Decent stuff, but he was in the big leagues and I was in AAA, so he was, we'll call it, a relative competitor. I'm trying to get up into his role. We're all teammates, in the organization. You always watched the way a starting pitcher did when you were a starting pitcher in AAA, always kind of hoping that someone would falter because you wanted the opportunity. I mean, as much as you want to be a team guy, it's tough when you're a minor leaguer trying to get up. You really are watching for anything. Well, anyway, Willie unfortunately got hit in the face with a line drive by Julio Franco, and it broke his jaw. And he was out for, I don't know, probably 10 weeks or 16 weeks. It was a substantial amount of time. And he happened to it was a good time. He was like arbitration year was the next year. When he came back from his injury, he was a guy that when he pitched, he would spin off to the side. A lot of you guys may remember, Mitch Williams, even though he's left-handed, every time he pitched, he'd be falling off to the side. Willie had maybe not as dramatic, but he would always finish like his back turn basically to the batter, and that's how he got hit in the jaw. He got hit in the face. So he had tweaked his mechanics to be able to finish a little bit more, in that athletic fielding position, and it gave him more command. Next thing you know, he's able to locate a little better. He went on to win 10 games. Following year, got picked up in the Rule 5 draft by the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Major League Rule 5, and so they gave him like a 3-year, $11 million contract. And this is a guy that was making league minimums, a couple $100,000, which again is a ton of money. I mean, I think a lot of us would love to make $100,000, but you have to make $100,000 in order to afford the lifestyle of traveling to these places, renting apartments or houses for $2,500 plus a month. You're losing security deposits. I remember, and I'll leave it, because I could go on. I remember sitting with the Anaheim Angels towards the end of my career with Tom Candiotti, a knuckleball pitcher. I don't know if you guys remember him, and Kent Merker. Kent Merker was a left-handed pitcher, part of kind of the Braves run. He was one of their young phenoms. And they were talking, we were in there getting ready to have our physicals. And the only thing that they talked about, their almost most memorable moment about the grind that is, baseball behind the scenes, their most memorable moment was how many security deposits they think they must have lost throughout the years. And how much of a pain in the neck it was to travel and this and that. And it made me realize that it doesn't matter how much money you make when you're living that lifestyle. It does take a toll on you, And maybe that's a good segue for Doug to talk a little bit about his experience in the big league.
Hey, Doug. Before you go there, you talk about living and things like that. You had some culture change. You played in Korea and Taiwan. Everybody's kind of watched. I think a lot of people now are watching the Korean baseball And it's been really fun to watch because it's baseball. I've been watching it and made my whole family kind of pick a team to cheer for. My wife's got the Kia Tigers because Tigers, RIT. My son Brady, Kiwam Heroes because heroes, he's superheroes. He likes that. And then my son Casey picked the LG Twins, right? And Casey's the loyal kid. He picked the LG Twins because Doug played for the LG Twins. So my daughter Riley, who probably does the best, Riley. I said to Riley, I said, "You're going to pick the LG Twins because of Doug, right?" She goes, "No, they're not any good. I'm not picking them." So, it didn't matter that you played there and personal connection and everything like that. She's like, "I'm not picking them." I can't remember who she picked, but she didn't have the loyalty to you. I don't know why. What was it like being in Korea? It had to be super cool. We don't get to see the fans and all the stuff they do and the interaction. That culture seems to just really embrace and have fun with baseball. And I've said to my son Casey, I said, let's get on a plane when we can and go to Korea. Not that I had that kind of money, but let's go on the plane and go see Korean baseball live because I'm really looking forward to seeing what it's like when there's fans there. What's it like?
It was actually very exciting. I played for LG, what was based in Seoul, in the capital. So, being over there, Americanized city, I could get anything I wanted to eat American-wise. It was also, I just got a low battery. I got to plug in my battery here. The talent, I would say pretty much every team probably had 2 or 3 guys that could play in American play. It was right between AAA and big leagues, talent-wise. The talent's gotten much better on the Korean side. Locker rooms were a little different. You go on the road, you didn't have any locker rooms. You dressed at the hotel. You'd come home after the game and go in your hotel room, take off your uniform and everything, set it outside your door. Next morning you woke up, it was your clothes were right there, folded, nice and neat, ready to go. But like you said, the fans, unbelievable. Getting into the game. They have those balloons, which you can't see right now on ESPN because there's no fans. They're beating the balloons. Yeah, it's crazy. They get into it. But I played there for 3.5 months. I was in AAA with the Mets. They said I probably wasn't going to go to the big leagues that year. I was having a good year. And there was 2 teams that wanted my contract, and they bought it. And I went over to Korea for 3 months. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. And then the other aspect of that is I was going to retire after my last year in 2004. I was in winter ball. I threw a shutout against Puerto Rico in the Caribbean World Series, and a Taiwanese scout saw me, and he said, "You want to come to Taiwan, pitch over there?" And I mean, like I said, I was gonna retire, and they gave me $100,000, all expenses paid, apartment, everything, and I go, "What the heck? I'm 39 years old. I'll do it." And Taiwan for me was the longest 7.5 months of my life. Vast difference compared to Seoul. I was in the oldest city in Taiwan called Tainan. Wasn't Americanized. I had to eat like a Taiwanese. I could say if you want to lose weight, I lost 20 pounds in 7 months. So it was tough. A tough 7.5 months of the end of my playing career.
Yeah.
Doug, I got a quick question for you on that. Which out of all the places that you played, like where were the fans the most manic? Where did you find that got teams? What stadium was it just absolutely chaotic?
Old Yankee Stadium. I don't even have to think twice. I mean, we'd go out there during batting practice, and you wouldn't. You would have your jacket on because once they knew what number you were and who you were, they were all over you. And then a close second was probably Fenway. Down the bullpen, you literally could touch the people right behind you when you're warming up. And I'd be down there, and they'd be throwing peanuts at me and stuff warming up. So, but Yankee Stadium they're harsh on you. for visiting
even
teams.
even more so than like Korea with the balloons, and Venezuela, like we talked about, with winter ball, what it was like. I played in Mayaguez in Puerto Rico, and I mean, if we didn't play well, they threw oranges at us. Like they served like these half oranges, and there'd be, and when I say a couple, we're talking about probably 5,000 oranges get thrown on the field. They're stopping play to move oranges off the field. So I'm curious your experience.
Yeah, Venezuela didn't have oranges; they had rum bottles. And literally, they back then there was no. I mean, you could bring glass into the stadiums and stuff, and they're getting drunk. It's unbelievable. If something happens that they don't like, rum bottles got thrown on the field. So yeah, Venezuela was maybe a little bit more dangerous. Plus, the 1 year I was down there, I happened to be down there during the coup attempt when Chavez took over the country. And that's where when he did that, we're playing ball and we had a guard pretty much every 10 to 15 yards with a German Shepherd and an AK-47 on the field and two in the dugout just to protect us to play. So if you're talking about danger, yeah, Venezuela is probably the worst place I could have played.
I'll take a little Boston heckling, or maybe a Long Islander giving me a hard time about me being from upstate New York for that.
Yeah.
The worst I ever saw in Yankee Stadium, we had batteries. They would throw batteries at us. We had a couple of our starting pitchers were getting batteries tossed at them, but that was about the worst.
Well, and
Greg,
you obviously, you made your debut with the Tigers, and I grew up in Detroit, went to Old Tiger Stadium all the time. So your debut, I mean, what's that like coming into a stadium like Tiger Stadium and making your debut?
As a rookie, my rookie year was 96, and I had Cecil Fielder and Alan Trammell on the team, and Travis Fryman, and some old, we'll call them, Tiger staples, right? Back in even the glory years of when they won, in '84 with obviously with Tram, and all different personalities. All three of them were completely different people, and the best part about obviously the history, to think about, the fact that you're walking down, the same tunnels, I call them the catacombs of Tiger Stadium. Like the way the stadium was, you'd walk out of the clubhouse and walk down a set of steps and kind of through this like cement tunnel. And then that would lead up into the dugout. And it smelled like just the worst stale urine and smoke that you could ever smell, because there was a bathroom right there, and
it smelled like Detroit.
Yes, I mean, oh, buddy, it was awful, but it was, that's baseball, and it was great. That's how it's time to get your game on. You're going walking through the tunnel with your nose, holding your breath. But it was, thinking about, just like I said, I mean, some of the great players that had come before me, when as much as we stay fans forever, there's nothing better than being, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, toasted cheese sandwich and a bowl of soup, watching your favorite team that, on a hot summer night or whatever, got done playing outside all day. I mean, that's what baseball is, right? You just played wiffle ball out front, and now your team's on, and you're going to go watch it, whether it's Korea or Taiwan or, wherever, Venezuela, wherever you're watching it, it's kind of the same thing. It's still, the beauty of it is that for, the youth side of it. So, knowing that I was playing where all my heroes were playing was pretty awesome. Now, the only thing to that was we also I was kind of right, we'll call it at the renaissance of the stadium revival, right? Where the new stadiums were being built. Every stadium had its own, quirks to it. I watched a special the other day, was actually really intriguing, about how baseball is the only sport where each city has a different size field than any other sport. Basketball is the same, football is the same. You can have some quirks to it, but the playing surface of baseball is the only sport that has different outfields. And at one point, the super stadium had come out, and they went to like the same look, and that just was boring and got old. And then a couple of these stadiums came in with like your Arlington Stadium was built, and Camden Yards was really the first one with the the field or the factory out in the outfield warehouse. I mean, having these unique things and these nuances to the stadiums, it was hard. History can only take it so far. When you're in Boston and Detroit, and they're awful, like dirty, smelly stadiums, and then you go on the road to Texas and Seattle. And Seattle actually was on the way out, but Texas and I'm trying to think. Baltimore was a big one. I'm trying to think of some of the other new, but now you got all the new ones, right? Comiskey or Tiger Stadium's new. Doug, all the even the National League probably more so than me, but every stadium now has the greatest facilities that you can imagine.
Yeah, and Doug, that was like you came up. You made your debut at Fenway, another kind of old park like that. But I mean, what's that like walking into your first big show experience and you're at Fenway Park?
Yeah, I got called up with the Blue Jays in '92, and I actually got called up. I think we had 2 or 3 games left at home, and then I didn't pitch in any of those games. I was in the bullpen. Been a starter my whole life so far up to that point, and we went to Fenway. Juan Guzman was hurt or got hurt in the middle of the game. I remember it. And he left the game with bases loaded, 1 out. And they called me in like in the 4th inning. And I remember it well. I mean, the individual was Bob Zupsik, center field for Boston. And I played against him in the minor leagues. I played with him in the Jayhawk League in college ball. He went to Oral Roberts University. Pat Borders came to the mound, and he goes, how do you want to face it? How do you want to go after this guy? And I go, let's throw a first pitch slider. He'll swing and miss, and we'll go from there. So first pitch, I threw a first pitch slider. He swung and missed, and I wound up striking him out. Next guy was Jody Reed, and threw 3 pitches that were pretty good. And I didn't get one of the calls, wound up walking him. And next guy was like another no-name guy, and I wound up punching him out. And that was my experience. I wound up pitching, I think, 3 1/3 innings, but struck out 2 of the first 3 guys I faced. And I think it would have been different if it wasn't Bob Zupsik, because I played against him, played with him. I knew how to get him out. So I wasn't nervous. I was more nervous in my next game. I actually started against the Baltimore Orioles. And I remember it was in Skydome, and I was up there pitching, and all of a sudden Cal Ripken comes up, and I'm going, holy bleep, bleep, bleep. I can't believe I'm facing Cal Ripken right now. And then I could see myself just taking the sign, and my gloves like shaking. But wound up pitching good in that game. I gave up, I think, 2 runs in 7 innings against Baltimore, getting the win, my first big league win.
Nice. Hey, we were talking the other day. Who was the hardest guy to get strike 3 on?
Wade Boggs. You can get 1 and 2, but you couldn't get 3. He had to swing and miss.
Dude, you wouldn't get called. You wouldn't get a call through strike on him.
No. Nope.
Greg, same thing.
I didn't face him as much as Doug did. I did get a chance to pitch against him, but for me, my nemesis was Bernie Williams. I couldn't get Bernie Williams out for anything. I think I got 1 strikeout against him. Bernie's like, I think he was like literally like 11 for 8 against me. I mean, that's how many hits he got, I think. And, every pitch, I remember I faced him, like I said, right a dozen times. I struck him out 1 time on a 3-2 changeup. That was my best pitch, and I just happened to get him. But I remember thinking I had him 0-2 in Tiger Stadium towards the end of my career, big league career anyway, like 98. I'm thinking, I'm going to throw a curveball right here. He's never seen it. I'm going to just throw it in the dirt. I'm going to go a little curveball. He's never, he won't swing at it. And then I, use something else. He just dropped it in for a base hit to right field. Guys at that level, every mistake you make gets hit. It's just that simple. Mistakes don't get missed. Good pitches, if it's a good quality pitch and it misses a little bit over the zone, I mean, hitting is still really hard. But if you make a mistake, you're getting hammered at the big league level. They don't miss it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, we tell our young kids, I mean, guys are moving up through the organization, obviously. And I take this from a story that I got when I got to the big leagues. My chair was between Tom Henke and Jimmy Key when I first got called up to Toronto. And Tom Henke just took me aside and he just said, he goes, don't try to do anything different. The same pitches get the same guys out. The mistakes get hammered more often. And that's what it is. It's more consistency and hitting your spots at those levels. But I was going to say also, my nemesis was Edgar Martinez. He's the one. I helped him get to the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Yeah, he was like 14 for 17 off me, and it's funny. The 3 times I did get him out, it was at the old Kingdom. Every time he came up, there was runners on base, and I already knew I couldn't. He was a tough out for me.
Yeah,
and I happened to get him out all 3 times when there was runners on base, but the other times he got 14 hits off me, so he was a tough one.
I started my first outing in the big leagues. It was '96. Of course, I had spring training through the big leagues, but we went to Minnesota, and Minnesota had, back, the twin, or I guess the Metrodome they call it, right? Isn't that what it's called? Still, their bullpen is on the field. They don't have anything between catcher and the dugout, and I'm down in the bullpen thinking I'm the first one up. Starting pitcher, it's our first game, opening day, and they're getting me up to warm up, and all I'm thinking is, the catcher, don't bounce a curveball. I don't want Buddy Bell to see the ball come rolling into the dugout. He's got a reliever up. So every pitch I threw was at the mask, and all I wanted to do was just get onto the field where I could actually throw a curveball or a slider into the dirt. I got my first strikeout that day too. Chuck Knobloch was my first big league strikeout, and then actually struck Rich Becker right after that. So, but that was my opening day was good old Minnesota. And like I said, I think I was more nervous. I can't remember how many games it took before I realized who was even playing defense for me. Most of the games I'd go out there so nervous. I'd be so worried about just the catcher. I didn't even know who's playing left field.
Well, it's I want to take a couple minutes here. We have just a few minutes left, and something that Rob, that Coach Groh and I talked about earlier was you make all these stops. You play in the minors, you play in the bigs, you play internationally, but it sounds like this game really comes down to some relationships. So Rob, I'm going to throw this to you. Talk a little bit about the relationship you've made with both players and coaches and everybody else in baseball.
Yeah, I think for me that's everything, right? I mean, baseball is a game. We love playing the game. We love watching the game, hearing about the game, talking about the game, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's what brings people together, right? It's what brings families together. My first memories are of being at Silver Stadium in 1971, running around in the bleachers, watching Bobby Grich play shortstop, my favorite player. You can see my jersey back, number 4. Number 4 became Bobby Grich, right? I was 5 years old at the time, right? But that's what it was, me and my dad, right? So it started there, right? So it was family. And then you go on and you play and you have friends and high school friends and college friends. And, there's still guys that I text all the time and still guys that we get together with. And then a guy that's played in the big leagues calls and says, hey, I would like to work out at your place. And we become lifelong friends since, right? I mean, my daughter thinks of him as an uncle. She sees him so much and talks to him so much. And, so, I mean, that's just something that doesn't happen a lot in the real world. Greg and I just started talking about baseball at Frozen Ropes, and all of a sudden, he's been our assistant coach for how long, right? So the common bond is baseball, but the cool thing is the relationships and people. And, it's been almost 30 years now, I guess, coaching. And that was my goal from the beginning, was to have this family, right? And it happened before me too. Coach Proper was super good at all this stuff, right? The people that played for Coach Proper, Phil Ferrante and all those guys, Jeff Hall, all those guys, they've got great relationships and things like that too. So it's not something I invented. It's just something that I think is super important. And I think relationships are what it's all about. Baseball has given me everything. It's given me my friends, my family. I met my wife because of baseball, right? I mean, I think we can all say that probably, right? Baseball has given me everything, and I'm so grateful to have great relationships. And these two guys are some of the best people you'll meet, and that's consistent with baseball. Baseball just has good people, and everybody that's on here that played baseball at RIT or has been involved knows that, and we're thankful to have them as part of our extended family. RIT's got a really good baseball family.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, Rob. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be on this phone call if it wasn't, back in '99 when my wife said, "Hey, maybe we can talk to you and work out at RIT." And now it's 18 years later, we're still talking. But relationships are great in this game, and we try to steal that with our young kids, because obviously not every kid's gonna get in the big leagues that we draft, and but you have a chance as a coach to really impact one of these kids. If it's not on the baseball field, it's in life. And if you can impact one of these kids, you've done your job. If they're in your organization for 2 years or 17 years, but try to steer them in the right way and give them opportunity, give them hope. And if baseball doesn't work out, hopefully you've made some relationship in a way. And I've had many of friends that in this game that I've coached that have moved on and not playing anymore. They still will call me or text me and just ask me how's it doing as a coach. And as a player, I talk to the Pat Henkins, the Woody Williams, and everybody else who I come across. And Greg, Willie Blair, I even talked to him. He was drafted by the Blue Jays, and I believe he's a AA pitching coach with Detroit. But he'll text me and call me every now and then too.
Tell him I said hello.
I will.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody, Rob, Greg, Doug, for your time today. And just mention to the audience, if there's any additional questions, they can be emailed to RIT alum at rit.edu, and we'll direct your questions to our presenters. All audience members will receive an email from us in a week with a link to today's webinar recording. You can also see a full listing of upcoming virtual events like today's webinar at rit.edu/alumni/Tigers Staying Home for a listing of our upcoming events. So we have several each week, and we'd like to include you in as many of those as possible. So with that, I'll thank everybody for attending. I know we're just a couple minutes over here, but really appreciate everyone's time. And stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the rest of the summer. Hopefully we'll maybe see some baseball this year. Who knows?
We will.
We will. So yeah, maybe a parting shot there. Are we going to see baseball this year?
I think we will. It's going to come down to the 11th hour, and they'll figure something out.
Yeah, they have to. They have to figure it out. How can you be the only sport that doesn't come back or start? I mean, hockey's going to do it. Basketball's going to do it. Football's going to do it. Baseball's going to have some labor negotiations, forget about the fans and everything like that. It's, at the end of the day, the owners and players hopefully will remember it's about the fans as much as anything else, and do the right thing, because Korean baseball is fun to watch, but but MLB, it's there for a reason. We want to watch the best in the entire world.
They call it the big show for a reason.
Exactly.
Well, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week, and go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Thanks, John. Home run.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome.